To order and call for, I would like to welcome everyone to the May 3rd regular meeting of Mendocino LAFCO. And clerk, would you please call the roll?
I'd be happy to. Commissioner Orth?
Here.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Here.
Commissioner Ward? Commissioner Frohnberger?
Here.
Thank you. Commissioner Gonzalez?
Present.
Commissioner McGorty?
Here.
Commissioner Mulhern?
Here.
Commissioner Bazzani?
Here.
Commissioner Winkle?
Here.
Commissioner Roden?
Here.
Commissioner Haschak? Thank you. Other staff members present include Executive Officer Hinman, Analyst Larkin Filer, and Legal Counsel Mr. Scott Brown.
Thank you, Clerk Meadows, and the quorum is present, so we will continue on with our meeting. In response to the COVID-19 pandemic emergency, our meeting today is being held remotely by video and teleconference. Public viewing is via the live stream video link, which is available at the county's YouTube channel. The link is noted in our agenda and on our website. All commissioners and staff are participating remotely through Zoom today. We ask that all participants be on mute when not speaking, please. We've established procedures for public input by email and teleconference. The directions are noted on the top of today's agenda. Any public calling in wishing to speak during the public comment periods will be placed in a virtual waiting room and called upon in turn. To help us accurately record today's meeting and actions, we will be employing the following points of order. The chair will call on each commissioner individually for comment and discussion in an orderly fashion. Commissioners making motions are asked to state their name for the record. The staff will be asked if any public comment has been received during each item. All actions requiring a vote will be conducted by roll call. With that, we'll move on to public expression. This is the time for any member of the public to address the commission on any matter not on today's agenda, but within the commission area of jurisdiction. Comments on any item that is listed on the agenda should be given at the time the item is discussed by the commission today. Staff, do we have any public comments received for this item, or are there people in the waiting room wishing to address us?
We have no one registered for this item. We do have a number of folks who have just entered, and I would like to confirm, is Commissioner Ward in the meeting? Commissioner Ward, are you on mute?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
We will note that Commissioner Ward has joined the meeting. And with that, is there any public comment? Beth?
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I had spoken to Uma previously about presentation or just a Q&A about water supply conditions, and I wasn't sure I was available this morning, but alas, I am. So I will be here if you have any questions. I'll try to stay throughout the meeting.
Thank you. Any other further public comment today? Okay, there being none, we'll move on to our consent calendar. And the two items, CA, approval of the April 5th regular meeting summary. Discussion. We'll start with Commissioner Gonzalez. Do you have any comment?
No comment.
We'll go to Commissioner McGortney.
No comment at this time.
Commissioner Mulhern.
No, thank you.
Commissioner Roden? Ignacio?
I will say no, but I will put a motion up to approve if you want to continue discussions.
Please go ahead and make your motion.
Move to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion.
Tony,
Yes.
you didn't ask me, Commissioner Ward.
No, we're still going through. We just put the motion on. So Commissioner Ward?
It's on the consent calendar, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make a point that our attorney had over 12 hours of service for us under a regular time, and there was only a few hours for the city of Ukiah. So I'm not sure how much more of that should have been billed to the city of Ukiah, but I'm just concerned about our own legal fees in the future. I'm only bringing that up. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Let's see, did I leave someone out? Mr. Dickey, did I call on you?
Do what?
Do you have any comments on the motion?
Yeah.
Are there any comments on the motion as it stands? Then can we conduct a roll call on accepting the meeting summary?
Yes, we can. Commissioner Fronberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern.
Yes, but for the record, I believe our motion is for both consent calendar items. So I just want to make sure that everybody and the chair are aware of that. But I do vote yes on both consent calendar items.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that, but that's fine.
This is Commissioner Ignacio. The motion was for the entire consent calendar, Tony, both 3A and 3B.
Thank you. Maybe I should pause the vote then and ask for any further comments on the approval of April claims and financial report. Are there any comments by commissioners? Jerry, we did get yours. Thank you.
Yeah, that's it.
All right, continue with the roll call. Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right. Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay, the next item on our agenda is a public hearing. 4A, public hearing on the proposed budget and work plan for fiscal year 21-22. I'm requesting Uma that you make your presentation now.
Thank you, Chair Orth. For the record, I wanted to note that the proof of public notice has been included in your agenda packet. I'm going to share my screen so that I can do a short presentation. Is that visible to everyone? And is that being included on the live feed?
This is Glenn McGorty. I can see it.
Thank you. Okay, I will go ahead. I wanted to start off with saying that we received one question from one of the special districts about the budget and no other comments were received. I'm just going to do a brief summary again of the budget development process. The annual budget process is set forth in the Cortese-Knox-Hertzberg Act, which we did implement. The CKH requires that the budget be greater than or equal to the previous fiscal year unless the commission finds that the reduction in staff and program expenses will not impact the commission's ability to fulfill its purposes and programs. The work program that is developed as part of the budget process is a narrative of the expected work products in a fiscal year. That is included on page 25 of your agenda packet. It includes the basic services, which is our executive officer, our analyst, and our clerk. It also includes the services and supplies that are anticipated for the fiscal year, and the work plan, which consists of our municipal service reviews and sphere of influence updates. It is essentially the tentative plan for our future work products in order to meet the state mandates and prepare our sphere updates. Again, this is just a brief or a visual to really take a look at the relationship between apportionment fees and our reserves. And you can see that in 2010 through 2012, the work plan was not implemented fully, which resulted in an increase in our reserves, which has been spent down until recent years.
Excuse me, somebody needs to mute their mic. We're getting a lot of feedback.
Thanks, Jerry.
Okay. So the proposed budget consists of the revenues and expenditures anticipated for the next fiscal year. As a reminder, the revenues for LAFCO are essentially the apportionment fees, which is a formula that is set by state regulation. And
Excuse me, Uma, this is Glenn McGordy. I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you. I don't know what your microphone situation is, but you're not coming across very loud.
Okay, I can, if you want to give me a moment, I can probably switch to phone if that will be better.
That sounds good right now. Are you closer to your mic or what's happening?
I guess I am a little bit closer. I'll try to at least finish this presentation if that works for folks. So the apportionment fees are a 1/3 split between the county, the cities, and the special districts. It is established with the adoption of the annual budget, and then those funds are collected by the county auditor on behalf of LAFCO. Other revenues are interest from our bank accounts and the application fees, which are a zero sum. So they are included in both the revenues and expenditures. Again, the expenditures consist of the basic services, our office operations, and then our work plan. This is the proposed budget summary that was distributed to the cities, county, and special districts in early April. So the revenues, the proposed budget is $225,100 for revenues and $205,150 for our expenditures. During our last regular meeting, we held a staff training, a commissioner training, LAFCO 101, after the main part of our agenda. And during that time, we received a number of comments from several commissioners regarding including staff training and the status of that. And since 2011, there's been no budget allocated for contract staff to attend any of the trainings that are put on by Cal LAFCO. So we have included a proposed revision to our proposed budget to include staff training, to send 3 staff to the Cal LAFCO staff workshop, which is planned for March 2022. The budget for that would be about $3,350 and would include increases to the account $6,750 for travel and lodging and account $6,800 for registrations. No labor is proposed with the attending the training. It would simply be for expenses. The result would be a reduction in the deposit to reserves. With the proposed budget, we had almost $20,000 that we had estimated to be deposited to reserves, and that's to build up our legal reserves from the $35,000 to the $50,000 to offset or to start to build our reserves up to $100,000 for legal. So that If this were to be approved for inclusion in the final budget for hearing in June, it would reduce the deposit to the operations reserves. So again, this is a slide that we shared during our workshop last month. This is just a comparison of the budget and population for similar LAFCOs. So the blue line is the population and the green is the budget. Again, this is just to show the comparison of Mendocino LAFCO with other similar LAFCOs. The larger ones, El Dorado and Butte and Nevada, all have paid full-time staff. The work plan consists of the updating of the municipal service reviews and sphere of influences updates that have to occur every 5 years or as necessary. Staff works on prioritizing that list. First for identifying those with municipal services, the date of the last sphere update, and known development pressures for an agency or city. One of the requests from commissioners at the last meeting was to see a visual of when the last sphere updates were completed. That has been added to your agenda packet on page 26. We also tried to coordinate with other land use plan updates, and that's for a comprehensive planning and also efficiency of planning efforts, as well as CEQA. CEQA stands for California Environmental Quality Act, for those that don't know. So this is our proposed work plan for this next fiscal year. These include the estimated costs. It's important to note that no CEQA costs are included with these estimates. It's also important to note that the City of Ukiah has offered to fund the consultant costs for preparation of their MSR and sphere update, as well as their CEQA. So the $12,500 identified here for the City of Ukiah is for LAFCO staff's management and participation in that MSR sphere update. I have that's it for that slide. So for the next steps, we held a workshop on April 5th on the preliminary budget and work program, and then distributed the proposed budget and work program to the cities, county, and the special districts. And then we are seeking a direction from the commission to schedule the public hearing for the final budget and work program on June 7th. That concludes my presentation, and I can answer questions.
Okay, I'll turn it over to the commissioners. We'll go in turn. Commissioner Ignacio, comments?
Great presentation. I appreciate the summary. It's very inclusive of everything we've gone over, and I'm hoping that you can make available this presentation of the PowerPoint to at least me and maybe other commissioners if possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Frauenberger.
No comments at this time.
Thank you, Matt. Commissioner Gonzalez.
I echo what Commissioner Ignacio said, and question for Uma. Did each of the thank you, whoever muted. Question for Uma. Did each of the entities get basically this is what you're going to pay, not just this is what all, but what the apportionments are going to be total, but everybody got kind of I guess an exact dollar amount of what their estimated bill from LAFCO is going to be.
What we send out is it's actually in the agenda packet on page 24. So it's the proposed budget. Because the county auditor is the one who implements the formula, and it's based on the annual operating revenue of the previous year, we don't have a specific number for each of the agencies. That's developed by the auditor after the commission adopts the final budget.
Thank you very much. That's all I had.
Thank you. Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Chair. A couple things. First of all, I wasn't at the 101 thing. I left that early because I've been to several of those. What was discussed on the staff going to the CalDAFCA? Was it how many? 2 of them?
That's for 3 staff members?
3 staff members.
Yes.
Does that include our EO or is that additional?
That includes the EO, I believe. Is that
Okay.
Uma?
That's correct. The executive officer, the analyst, and our clerk.
Okay. In the past, Uma, weren't you paying for your own lodging?
For the, what our policies allow for now is reimbursement for the executive officer's conference registration, and that does not include any expenses. That's correct. There has been no budget for the staff workshop at all.
So we're changing sort of our previous policy with regard to you.
Under this proposal, it would, yes. Go ahead, Uma.
And to clarify, they are for separate, one is for the annual conference, which typically is attended by the executive officer and commissioners. This would be for the staff workshop, which is strictly for LAFCO staff and occurs in May.
Okay. All right. Thanks for the clarification. The second item is on the work plan. Looking at your work plan through April of this year, it doesn't seem that you're going to complete any of the work plan, most of the work plan this fiscal year for various reasons. But yet we're including some of those expenses again in the next budget year. For instance, the Ukiah Valley Fire Department, we had originally approved for this year 7,000. Now we're still only doing 6. The sanitation district, we were going to do the 12.5, but now we're doing 20. Where are we on the sanitation district looking at doing their own MSR SOI?
The sanitation district, we recently heard from them, and they did discuss their sphere update at their one of their last meetings earlier this month. And I believe that they are ready to move forward with the sphere update, and we are working on the funding portion of that. I don't have any specifics to share at this time about it, but we are going to be moving forward with their sphere update in the coming months.
Yeah. Okay, and the Ukiah, City of Ukiah, we have another 12,500, but you haven't even spent the 12.5 for this year as well. So I'm just concerned about, we're not, well, first of all, we're not moving forward as fast enough, and I think that was evident in a lot of the correspondence from the City of Ukiah that we're way behind on our SOIs. So I won't talk about it at this budget hearing now, but it's something we need to consider in the future, maybe a future agenda item where we do more staffing to get some of these SOI MSRs completed. But we're just not, for the last several years, we haven't met our work plans because of various reasons. And it could be COVID, it could be the lack of information coming from the agencies, but as you can see from correspondence, we're quite far behind. So anyway, that's all I had. Thank you, Chair, for letting me comment.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward and Commissioner McGortney.
So I share some of Commissioner Ward's concerns as well. I'm looking at our budget. We're quite a bit less than some other counties, and Uma, I'd just like you to comment on some of the differences between what we see like in El Dorado and Butte County compared to Mendocino, why they spend more money, and what are their outcomes, if you know of any.
Well, they have, I think they spend a lot more on their staffing and also on their work plan. And I believe that they also include quite a bit of a budget for additional outreach, which is something that we historically have not had the budget to do. attending district meetings when appropriate, or city meetings when appropriate. But they spend quite a bit more on their work plan, the municipal service reviews and the sphere of influence updates. We complete our sphere updates. The ones we complete in-house are done significantly less than, cost significantly less than what other LAFCOs pay. When we go out to bid, you start to see the more realistic costs of what those sphere updates are.
Okay, well, thank you for that. But again, I want to be sure we're properly staffed so we can keep moving forward. When we have items that are going on for 7 years, it just seems kind of strange. I don't understand why that should be dragging on like that, and we'll have more discussion on that later.
I will say that we have started to, when we can, we do contract out. I subcontract out to prepare some of the municipal service reviews. We currently have the Covelo CSD in progress and hope to have an administrative draft by the end of this month. We did move that one forward since we've been so delayed on the City of Ukiah and the Sanitation District sphere updates. And we will continue to do that as we are able to.
Uma. Marie?
Yeah, sure. Oh, Maureen. I thought you said Mari. Go ahead.
I did say Mari.
I wanted, first of all, I agree with Chair Ward also, or Commissioner Ward and McGorty, that we need to get some of these projects finished. And when I look at the work plan, something that is sort of glaring by its absence is that I don't see the sanitation district detachment application by the City of Ukiah on our work plan. And I mean, that was something that was, initiated way back in 2014. I wonder, Executive Officer Hinman, if you could explain why it's not on our work plan, and maybe we could discuss adding it to our work plan. Oh, and just one last thing. Would it be possible, Uma, for you to make your video on so we could see you?
Yes, I probably can. Hold on. I usually don't have the bandwidth for it, but since I'm in Ukiah.
That would be great. It would just be really nice to be able to see you as our leader. Thank you.
I haven't checked the background, so I apologize.
You look, it all looks really professional.
Okay, great. Yes, I can respond to the question about the application for the from the city for the sanitation district. We have two documents. We have the work program that identifies our basic services, and the work plan, which is the difference between the two is the work program includes the basic services. The work plan is strictly our municipal service review and sphere of influence updates. We don't include application processing on either of these documents. That is something that is not, it just falls under the application processing, which is on page 25 of our agenda packet, and doesn't get called out by applicant.
Thank you, Uma. Commissioner Roden, do you have any further comment?
Well, I just wonder about staff time, because if the work plan and the work program, which I don't totally understand the difference, but if the two of them together, make up for what the capacity of our staff, when we have applications come forward, is that what's causing jams? I don't know.
It is. Well, there's a couple of reasons for the delays in the sphere updates. One is that we knew that we didn't have the capacity to complete the City of Ukiah and the Sanitation District, because we do have quite a few applications that we are working on right now. So we went out to bid for the City of Ukiah and the Sanitation District sphere updates. Unfortunately, it has taken a very long time to get those going. So that's the delay on the work program for this year. And staff is very busy with policy development and with application processing, and those have taken up quite a bit of our staff time. We do, I do have the ability to subcontract out for the for smaller sphere updates, which we have done, as I noted a moment ago about with the COBOLA CSD, we did move that one forward because of the delays, and so that one is in progress.
Thank you, Uma.
I just want, sorry, I was muted. I just wanted to, I hope that we can talk about this more. I know we have a public hearing coming up, but to talk about how we can allocate staff time or just be able to increase our capacity to move through and get our mandated work accomplished. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Bazzani, comments?
I don't have any comments at this time.
I'm sorry, I muted myself. Commissioner Mulherin, any comments?
Thank you. Uma, I do have a question about the training, and I'm glad that we are able to send staff. I'm concerned, are they just volunteering their time? What does it mean by no labor costs involved? How is that working?
That's correct. What we're proposing this year is to basically donate our staff time. Well, my firm would pay for staff times attendance, and the reimbursement we are requesting from LAFCO this year is for the expenses, the registration and the lodging and travel.
Okay, thank you, Uma. Let's see, Commissioner Winkle, any comments?
I don't have any comments at this time.
Thank you, commissioners. At this point, I'll ask staff if we have any public wishing to make comments.
We had no pre-registrations for comment on this item.
All right, thank you. Let's see. I'll invite a motion in a second at this time.
We have to have a public hearing, right?
Excuse me. I'm sorry, I thought I was in the public hearing. Again, my main computer is out, so I'm having some difficulty here. I'll open the public hearing at 9:33 on the proposed budget. Do we have any public to comment in the waiting room?
No public is in the waiting room.
Do we have any further comments by commissioners? Then we'll close the public hearing at 9:33, and I'll be looking for a motion for the resolution.
Gonzalez, so moves.
Motion made. Is there a second?
McGorty, second.
Thank you.
A request for clarification.
Yes.
Is that the recommendation on page 20 of the agenda packet, including the request for the increase in the proposed budget to accommodate staff training?
Yes, from my perspective.
Yes.
Thank you.
Any needed further clarification? And again, I don't have the ability to see my agenda packet.
Mari's.
I have a question.
Mari, yes.
Thank you. So if we vote yes, then we're adopting the budget for next year. And it seemed like several of us had questions about how, we're going to accomplish all the process the applications that have come through, and also to complete the MSR, SOI updates and so on. And I just, I wonder if anybody might be interested in postponing this for maybe 2 weeks. I guess we could approve it at the next meeting, but maybe have a smaller group committee meeting and discuss, look more closely at the other counties that Uma had provided in our presentation. How do they pay for it? I mean, if they're similarly sized, do they have as many districts and municipalities as we do, to compare and see how it's working in other counties compared to us, and see if there are any adjustments we could make. I just feel like we're just going to approve, at the end of next year, we'll be in the same place saying, why we didn't get this and that done, and should we take a closer look? And if anyone else is interested in that, that'd be great.
I'll call on Commissioner. Commissioner
Chair.
McGuire.
Oh, excuse me. This is Commissioner Ward.
I'll come to you after Commissioner.
All right, go ahead.
Commissioner McGartney, go ahead.
I'm just curious, how easy is it for us to amend our budget if we need additional items as the year goes on?
We cannot amend once we do this budget. It goes into I believe the assessor's office for the charges will then be noted to each of the members. And at that time, once we approve this budget, I believe the budget we're not able to revise that budget till the following year. I might suggest that we go in, have the executive committee look into this issue and come back with an agenda item for discussion during our regular course of agendas during this year, and look to see whether we could look at the staffing and look at our work product and how fast we're able to accomplish. I would also note that during this pandemic, there have been economic impacts to many of our member agencies, and we are doing a fairly substantial increase in this budget, specifically for legal reserves. And so that will have to be part of the consideration as well. And I'll go to Commissioner Ward for comment, and then Scott Brown. I believe you're indicating you need to speak.
Yeah, if I can.
Would you like to speak before Commissioner Ward?
Well, I would just like to point out that you do have the ability during the course of the year to amend your budget, as long as you're just moving things between one budget item and another and not changing the contribution rates for the individual agencies. So you can move things around, but you can't change the overall number.
I'd just like to make a point of order, Chair, if you don't mind, as a follow-up.
Yes, Mr.
The resolution that's before us, I believe, is just to accept the proposed budget. It's not finalized until June 15th.
Yes.
Thank you.
Unmuted.
I need to recognize Commissioner Ward.
Thank you, Chair. First of all, I'd like to say that I've been through these budgets, and we're not getting our work plans done. But as Uma expressed, there's a lot of work on applications, lots of work on, well, look at 360 pages we got in this agenda summary, this agenda from all the City of Ukiah issues. Look at the thousands and thousands of legal fees that sure went back and forth. But unfortunately, if we raise our budget, we're also raising the 1/3 of the districts which can't afford to pay it. I think we do need more staff time. We do need more work done. But as our budget goes up, so does the cost to the smaller districts, cemetery districts, water districts, fire districts, etc. So it's really unfortunate that we can't come up with something more that we could charge for our own work plan and for the cities and the larger districts to help pay for their costs. But I do believe we need more staff, but I'm just concerned about putting that expense onto the smaller districts. So I don't know the answer. It's a little late in the game, I think, to increase our budget significantly, even though we have one more month. But I do have some concerns about meeting our work plans in the future and getting this done. It's always been a problem for me over the years. We're not getting enough done. Even the darn MOU hasn't even been completed. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there?
Chair
Yeah.
Orth, if I
Yeah.
could just make a couple statements.
Please.
I wanted to clarify that, as Scott noted, we do have the ability to amend the budget throughout the year. What is fixed is the apportionment fee. So our revenue is fixed for the year. The budget can be amended throughout the year, and we do have reserves should that need be. Should that be necessary. The other thing I wanted to note, and thank you, Commissioner Ignacio, for bringing that up, is that this is a public hearing for the proposed budget. Once the proposed budget is adopted, it again goes out to the city, the county, and the special districts for review, and we have a public hearing on the final budget on June 7th. I also wanted to note that we did form an ad hoc committee for implementation of the work plan at our last meeting, and that ad hoc committee has not met yet, but that is possibly a forum for discussing the work plan and how to move that forward, how to implement that. Thank you.
Thank you, Uma. And this is indeed a draft budget and work plan that's going out. So we will be able to address this again. And I see Commissioner Moharan has her hand up. Go ahead.
Thank you. I understand the need to keep the budget consistent and to not charge smaller districts more funds. I think perhaps we can look at adding fees to applications for timely processing, because the people that are applying to have updates would like to see them done more rapidly. So maybe that's an option.
Uma, do you have a response? That is an option.
One of the things on our list of things we would like to accomplish is taking a look at our fee schedule. And a lot of LAFCOs do include in their billing costs include some long range planning funds on top of their staff billing rates. So that's something we want to look at. We haven't done that in the past. It has just been a dollar for dollar. So staff rate is billed at cost with no indirect costs included in that. So we will be looking at that and bringing that to the Policies and Procedures Committee for consideration.
And if I may,
yes.
with regard to speeding work on applications, we have two right now that we're accelerating with the cooperation of the agencies involved. So staff has been very mindful of the need to move these along and is working with the city of Ukiah to accelerate their sphere. And also we recently learned that the sanitation district is also prepared to lend LAFCO the money if necessary to accelerate their sphere. So staff has been very mindful of ways in which to accelerate the process and has been proceeding.
Thank you, Scott. Council Brown. Are there further questions to the motion? I do see Commissioner McGortney.
Yeah, so, thinking about this, the workload is not distributed equally among the three major categories. So it seems like there should be the equivalent of a pay-to-play provision somehow, so that people who are needing the most resources end up, helping to pay for it, so as not to slow the process down. Because I think that this is a really critical function as we try to expand services or change boundaries or whatever we want to do for for particularly the city of Ukiah and Ukiah Valley. So this is something that is of a lot of concern for me, that if we're underfunded, we're really slowing things down in terms of decision making, and we really have to face the reality of it. You know, it costs to get work done, and we have to put the resources in if we expect the organization to be effective.
I will make the comment that it seems like we could review our MSR SOI reviews, in particular in regards to the size of the districts and their budget, as to whether we can be flexible in the level of financial support when performing those reviews. Currently, I believe the districts receive the service for the annual member fees that they pay. And so that might be something we can look at towards the larger, better financially supported districts. That's just a comment of something maybe we can look at in future. Further comments from commissioners? Yes, Matt.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Well, this is a very important conversation. I do think that we're getting a little bit far afield. There is a motion and a second on the floor regarding this item. All of those items are good ideas, but I do not think that they're necessarily relevant to, at this point, to the proposed budget work plan for the fiscal year. We do have more time to review this again. There's public comment time, and if it needs to be changed, we can do it at that point, during that point in time. Right now is possibly not the best time to be doing that. So I would suggest that we move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. And with that, we can move this discussion to the Executive Committee to make a recommendation for a future agenda item. And with that, I'll call the question if there's no further comments from commissioners.
Commissioner Ignacio?
Yes.
We're still acknowledging there's a motion on the floor?
Yes, we're calling the question for the motion to be voted. I'll direct Christian, Clerk Meadows.
I believe we do not have a second yet.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, there was a motion and a second motion was made by Commissioner Gonzalez, seconded by Commissioner Fromberger.
Thank you.
Oh, actually, McGorty.
It was actually by me.
There we go. Chomping at the bit here.
Okay, Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Okay. With that, we're moving to our closed session, item 5A, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation. Is staff prepared to move us into a closed session?
Yes, we are. We do have a request from Phil Williams, who would like to make a comment on this item before we enter closed session.
Thank you. Let's proceed with that.
Mr. Williams?
Sorry, it's only been a year. Good morning, everyone. Can you hear me okay? I'm sorry.
Yes, we can.
Okay. So my name is Philip Williams. I'm an attorney for the city of Ukiah. I just have two quick points, and I want to be very clear. I don't know what you're going to discuss in closed session, and I emphasize that is not my business. That is the business of the commission and its attorney. I don't want to know what you're going to discuss in closed session, but I will observe that you're going into closed session to discuss anticipated litigation, and want to make clear that under the government code, anticipated litigation, you must have existing facts and circumstances, and there are certain scenarios that would trigger that ability to go into closed session. And I want to make perfectly clear and repeat what I've said before, and I hope y'all will hear me, that the city of Ukiah has no intent to litigate LAFCO, and we've communicated that repeatedly. So perhaps you are operating under threat from another agency that they're going to see you, but I just want to make sure we all understand that is not the city of Ukiah. In fact, our being here today under item 6A is evidence of our reluctance to litigate. And then secondly, Scripture says light has come into the world, but men love darkness because their deeds were dark. The city of Ukiah is standing here in broad daylight today, ready to address the issues in item 6A, which I observe immediately follow this item, and welcomes the opportunity for open and robust discussion on the issues in front of you. And we very much look forward to that open discussion in daylight. So unless you have any questions, that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. And I'll direct staff to, we're going into closed session, and ask if Mr. Spheres can confirm the meeting live feed and recording will be stopped during this closed session.
I don't believe he has the ability. He has given a thumbs up that he understands. We will be placing all non-commissioners into the waiting room and locking the meeting, and then we will bring folks back into the meeting following the closed session. So please stay on the line if you are waiting for 6A. Or yes, and we will put you in the waiting room now.
Uma, as an alternate commissioner,
Concluded its closed session, and I'll go to our council for report on the closed session.
Yes. The commission met in closed session to discuss anticipated litigation. And in basically, well, we don't quite know how many cases, but at any rate, there was no reportable action out of that closed session.
Thank you, council. And with that, we have a request from commissioners and staff for a quick 5-minute break. And so we are going to take a 5-minute break and come back at 10:47. Please go ahead and start your breaks. still appear to be frozen. I hope he can hear us. I don't think we should wait any longer. He is trying to get on, and I'm sure he will try. So matters for discussion and possible action under 6 is 6A.
Chair, who would replace Commissioner McGorty in this case in his absence?
That would be Commissioner Haschek, who is not with us today.
Thank you.
Should we ask that staff reach out to a phone call to Commissioner McGortney to see if he is having issues that won't allow him to attend? And we'll wait for that response.
Clerk, can you please give him a call?
Yes, I will.
Thank you. Will just be a moment, hopefully.
Chair, it wasn't my intent to hold up the meeting. I'm sure we can continue and he can read in as we move forward.
All right. Why don't we go ahead then? This is matter 6A, the City of Ukiah appeal of the executive officer's determination for the 2014 amended Ukiah Valley Sanitation District Detachment application, which is file D 2020-01. This item is consideration for the City of Ukiah's appeal of the executive officer's determination regarding the city's application for detachment of the Ukiah Valley Sand District areas. And why don't we move forward with staff presentation, please?
Thank you. Our analyst Larkin Filer will be presenting on this item.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Larkin.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
I believe we can.
Okay. So as background, back in 2014, the city filed the original application for detaching land from the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District that overlaps the boundaries of both agencies and constitutes approximately 1,300 parcels. In 2020, the city filed to reactivate their 2014 application, and LAFCO staff required updated application materials in order to proceed and initiate the tax share negotiation process. I should note that in the 2014 filing by the city, at that time, LAFCO staff required a plan for services and a property tax exchange agreement in order to proceed. In 2020, in our most recent submittal from the city, again, staff has requested additional application materials and has also encouraged the city to work with the sanitation district on issues raised by the district regarding the city's plan for services and CEQA exemption, because it is preferable for agencies to reach agreement amongst themselves. To date, LAFCO and city staff have spent considerable time working on application requirements and have reached an impasse on the following items. 1, the need for a new resolution of application. 2, the need for the city to act as lead agency and explicitly address CEQA. And 3, the need for completion of the city and district municipal service review and sphere of influence update. Understanding that the city is not in agreement with these requirements, LAFCO staff offered this appeal process. The city provided a letter detailing their justification for appeal, which starts on page 56 of the packet. LAFCO staff addresses the incomplete issues on pages 35 and 36 of the packet, which I will summarize briefly. In regard to the requirement for a new resolution of application, the city's 2014 resolution is outdated and no longer valid to initiate commission proceedings. The terms and conditions from the 2014 resolution need to be updated to reflect the changes that have occurred between the city and the district and need to be approved by the legislative body in the same manner as originally contemplated. In addition, the requirement for a new resolution is consistent with LAFCO Policy 11.10 regarding inactive applications, which specifies that any application remaining inactive for a period of 3 years shall automatically be deemed terminated. In regard to the requirement for CEQA compliance documentation, there is no clear record of the city's declaration of lead agency status and CEQA determination for the application when the resolution was adopted in 2014 by the City Council. This raises the question of whether the public and affected agencies were given the opportunity to know about and challenge the city's CEQA determination in 2014. Also, without clear record of CEQA compliance, LAFCO may need to assume lead agency status to proceed with the application. In regard to the requirement for city and district MSR and SOI updates, the city and the district's overlapping spheres date back to 1984, making it unclear which agency is the appropriate service provider for the area, and providing no relevant basis to guide SOI consistency review for the application. Efforts are currently underway to prepare the MSR SOI updates for the city and the district. And in addition, efforts are also underway to put into written policy the current practices of the Commission related to applications based on outdated spheres of influence. And there is an upcoming workshop scheduled with the Policy and Procedure Committee on May 11th for this policy development process. In closing, the purpose of this appeal process is for the Commission to weigh in on the 3 incomplete issues identified by staff, not necessarily to discuss the merits of the application, as that will come down the line once a public hearing is scheduled for the item. Staff's recommendation is to postpone the item today to allow more time to review the city's letter and respond. And I also want to note that legal counsel for the city is on the call to address further issues, and I believe there's also a member of the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District present to discuss this matter. And that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Okay, we'll go through the commissioners quickly to ask any questions of the presentation. We'll start with Commissioner Ignacio, please.
I'll reserve my time. Thank you.
Commissioner Frontberger. Any questions?
I have none at this time.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
Like Commissioner Ignacio, I'll reserve my time. I have some questions, but I'm ready to hear what's said.
That's fine. Commissioner Mulhern.
No questions for staff at this time.
Commissioner Bazzani.
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Roden.
None. Thank you.
Commissioner Winkle.
No questions.
I'll have no questions until I hear from the other party, the City of Ukiah, which I believe I'll invite their presentation now. We're looking at a 15-minute presentation. I hope you can ask for more time if you're unable to do that, but we'll look at 15 minutes. So I'll turn this over to the presentation by the City of Ukiah.
Thank you, sir, and good morning. I think we can. We'll try to hold this to 15 minutes, maybe give us plus or minus 2 minutes, sir. But good morning, all. Thank you very much for your time today and the opportunity to speak with you. My name is Philip Williams. I'm special counsel for the City of Ukiah. Also presenting for the city, we've asked Sean White. He'll present one component for you, as well as Miss Andrea Matarazzo, who is special CEQA counsel for the city. And unable to attend today, unfortunately, is Mr. Michael Colantuno, a special LAFCO counsel for the city. I will note that Mr. Colantuno's thoughts are encompassed in our letter beginning at Exhibit J, but he was unable to join us and sends his regrets. I want to emphasize my personal gratitude for Uma and her staff for offering this opportunity to address you. The city has gone through extraordinary lengths, as have LAFCO staff in the past year, to advance this detachment application. We agree to the three issues that Larkin expressed, and we agree that these three issues are the last ones and that they must be resolved in order for our application to proceed. But please allow me to be very clear. Our sincere hope is that resolution of these issues today will move us beyond the paralysis of the past. Our hope today is that once these issues are resolved, we will finally be allowed to discuss the more complex issues about the future of the Ukiah Valley at the hearing that Larkin referenced. And our hope today is that you will, as commissioners, will finally be allowed to do your jobs. Before we get to the issues, we thought it would be helpful, however, to have Sean and Mr. White provide some context. We provided a map that I think I can share with you while Sean is briefing. So I'll try to do that. Sean, go ahead.
Yeah, good morning, Chair and Commissioners. My name is Sean White. I'm the Director of Water Resources for the City of Ukiah, and Phil has asked me to give you just some brief historical context on the issue before you today. The city of Ukiah was, sort of the original urban center, if you will, of the greater Ukiah Valley. And because of that, it was also the first agency to provide centralized utility services, including water, sewer, and electrical. However, as the outlying areas began to develop in the Ukiah Valley, special districts were formed to provide those services similar to what we were providing here at the city. And then during, sort of the baby boom era, there were a lot of demand for development and housing in the Ukiah Valley. And as the city of Ukiah expanded its boundaries through a series of annexations to meet that need, some of those boundaries eventually overlapped. So to the north of the city overlapped portions of the Sand District that you can see there in orange, and to the south, it overlapped portions that you can see in the orange. The same thing actually happened for some other special districts as well, including Willow Water District to the south and Millview to the north. At that time, when the city was annexing these areas to provide municipal services and utilities, really would have been the appropriate time for the city to also detach. But it was a simpler time, and things were sort of less formal at that point. And for whatever reason, city leaders at that time simply did not complete that part of the LAFCO process. So it's been this way for quite some time. One of the things that I think, as I've sort of been involved in this as a staff person, and questions I get from folks is, if this detachment, what is it? And it would really basically be eliminating one of the layers of government in these orange areas that provide the same service. So Ukiah Valley Sanitation District was formed to provide sewer service. The city also provides sewer service. And in this orange area, the city provides everything except sewer, and the Sand District does. To the south, it's Sand District, and in the middle, it's just the city. But one of the things that I think people are not quite clear on is, well, what would happen if this detachment process moved forward? What would the transition of sewer services be like in this orange area as if detachment were to move forward? And the answer is that it would be exactly the same. because one of the things that's sort of unusual about the governance structure that was created to provide sewer services in the Sand District is that since its inception and to this day, the city actually provides all of the services. So the city maintains the entire collection system in both districts. We maintain and operate the wastewater treatment facility. We do all of the environmental compliance, and we do all of the capital planning as well. So for the residents in these areas, the transition would be invisible because we already do all of the actual physical work in these areas. So while it sounds like a big move, really all that would be happening is we'd be removing a layer of redundant governance in the boxes that are orange. And with that, I'll conclude my presentation.
Great, thank you, Sean. Just turning back, so with that context, we thought it might be helpful for everybody, but now kind of diving into those issues. Again, there are 3 issues before you today for your consideration. And those issues are, as Larkin expressed, whether the city needs to provide a certified copy of a new city council resolution of application, what is the status of the detachment's exemption from CEQA, and relatedly, LAFCO's role as a responsible agency under CEQA. To that point, Ms. Matarazzo will speak. And then finally, whether LAFCO may take action on the proposed detachment before both the city's sphere of influence and the Sand District's sphere of influence have been updated. And we'll take each of those in order. To the first one on the need for a new resolution. This issue immediately presents 2 implications. One practical and institutional, and the other, while perhaps more abstract, is nonetheless just as important. But first, and though I am reticent to even give this argument, frankly, further oxygen, the city provided a letter from Mayor Orozco, which I hope was distributed to the commissioners, emphasizing and validating that the detachment, seeking the detachment, is still entirely consistent with city council policy, and that to his knowledge, there has never even been discussion to anything to the contrary. So the suggestion by LAFCO staff that somehow there has been a change in policy by the city is, frankly, to put it politely, unsupported. But also candidly, that doesn't really address the issue head on, because there are very important practical and institutional implications to this request. And as I hope the body of exhibits before you demonstrate, this issue has to be appreciated from the context of the city's tireless efforts to advance its application in the face of similar requests and positions from LAFCO staff. Exhibit H in our letter, beginning on page 202 of our letter, contains some of those issues. And now many of them, for example, the request for a map, a shapefile, and the $6,000 that we provided. I note that we've provided another 4.5 since then, so over $10,000 were easy enough to provide, and we were happy to do so. But others presented some real interesting questions and frankly created an awful lot of work. For example, the request for a justification of proposal form with original signature led us into the rather absurd discussion about the authority of myself as special counsel for the city and even the city manager's authority to sign the application. Now, folks, agency law is taught to first-year law students, and a fundamental precept of that is apparent authority. You would think this issue would not be an issue in the case of the city manager sending an email to LAFCO staff CCing his city council members. The issue of agency is not alive, or so you would think, and yet it is an issue that took quite some time to resolve. And secondly, the fee agreement and indemnification language led to disagreements about due process of law and the right of redress. Despite the city's repeated efforts over several months, and here I refer you to Exhibit K in our letter, it was not until the Second Appellate District ruled in the way that every attorney of law I spoke with knew it would, and in fact knew it had to, that our comments were finally heeded. The city's efforts are now finally reflected in what I understand to be item 6B for today's meeting. So ladies and gentlemen, that issue took 14 months. And I would highlight that it is not an ancillary issue, but is one that deserves your very thoughtful consideration. LAFCO staff's concerns about our plan for services appear to be based on a letter from the Sand District. And despite repeated requests to LAFCO staff to make clear what omissions or issues they have with our plan for services, we have yet to be provided with anything substantial to which we can respond. Here I refer you to Exhibit HH, beginning on page 204 of our letter. As we stated back in August, over 8 months ago, see Exhibit 8H, HH, so we repeat today. Given, quote, given the complete lack of evidence to support the assertions, it is impossible for the city to understand whether, let alone how, it is to go about reconsidering its plan for services or what revisions are appropriate. To date, we have received no clarification, no explanation, no basis for this requirement. So ladies and gentlemen, basically we've been told we have a problem, but no one can tell us what the problem is. And that it's been 8 months. And these three issues are just examples that the discussion about the new resolution has to be taken into context with. The practical implications of that request for a new resolution are continued delay, and delay for reasons which I cannot understand and which apparently cannot be explained. The institutional implication of all this is an agency charged with the efficient provision of public services and the avoidance of waste and redundancy, LAFCO, forcing another public agency, the city, to expend significant time, resources, and public money for reasons which candidly have no basis in law and sound public policy. And finally, ladies and gentlemen, the simple fact is that the consequence of a request for a new resolution seeks to undo democratic government. And I will apologize here, but as a former Army officer, this one makes me a little angry, and I'm prone to perhaps react more viscerally than I should. But frankly, it should make you angry as well. I understand that we have new commissioners seated as of the beginning of this year. I understand that LAFCO staff has not forced you through the exercise of validating every previous action taken, the policy adopted by the commission prior to 2021, nor has the 117th Congress had to go back and re-ratify the 5th and 14th Amendments guaranteeing due process of law. The reason why not is obvious. The suggestion is an absurdity and an affront to fundamental conceptions of representative government. And as to the point that the application is somehow inactive, I question why it is inactive, and yet the commission has been being briefed on this application for a number of years. The argument that suddenly is being resurrected that it is inactive is hard to swallow. There is simply no requirement in American jurisprudence or sound public policy for the request for a new resolution. There just is not. And I respectfully ask that you dispense with this issue so that we can move on. But before we do, I've asked Ms. Matarazzo to address the concerns over CEQA. Andrea?
Thank you and good morning. I very much appreciate the opportunity to speak with you today. I am an attorney on behalf of the City of Ukiah. I specialize in land use and environmental review under CEQA, and I've been working almost exclusively in the area of CEQA matters for almost 30 years. The correspondence we've submitted to you on the CEQA issues, so-called, related to the detachment, provides citations to the statute, the state CEQA guidelines, and a lot of relevant case law. I invite you to review that information carefully. I'm not going to recite those authorities to you as I summarize our view of the CEQA issues this morning, but it's very important for you to understand that these are well-established points of law that we're talking about. These are not gray areas. They're not subtle points of potential disagreement. The city's position is supported by basic foundational black letter principles of CEQA. The first of those being that the detachment that we're talking about is statutorily exempt from CEQA. The detachment, as Mr. White explained, eliminates overlap of the boundaries of the city and the sanitation district within the detachment area. This proposed boundary change has no effect on the physical environment because sewer collection and treatment services continue in the same manner they have since 1955. We're talking about the same services in the same locations in the same way as they've been provided for 65 years. This is not a CEQA event. Eliminating the overlap continues the status quo as far as the environment is concerned, and that is the end of the CEQA inquiry. It establishes that the detachment is statutorily exempt from CEQA as an ongoing project, and therefore, as a matter of law, the detachment requires no CEQA review because it continues existing operations that were established before CEQA was enacted. The second important point for your consideration is that statutory exemptions from CEQA are absolute. There are no exceptions. If an activity falls within the definition of an ongoing project, like the services we're talking about here do, then the exemption applies. That's the end of the inquiry. This means that the question of unusual circumstances or other assertions of hypothetically conceivable environmental impacts that have been thrown out are irrelevant. The legislature determined that activities that were taking place before CEQA was enacted and that is continue in essentially the same way today are exempt from CEQA. So even if the boundary change we're talking about had any environmental impacts, then they would be irrelevant. Statutory exemptions apply regardless of any environmental impact. But importantly, we've been provided no information and no evidence of any environmental impact here. The question that's been asked is whether there is some requirement for public notice, whether there was some lack of transparency in the city's exemption determination. And on that point, I can assure you that the city's exemption determination is final. The city made an exemption determination at the time it adopted the resolution of application at an open and properly noticed meeting. The agenda for the resolution referenced the exemption determination, and in doing so, this is actually more than CEQA requires. There's no application to these facts of any CEQA case law, San Joaquin Raptor that was pointed out by your council, or any other case that would require the city to do more than it has already done. And again, this is not my opinion. This is black letter law. And to that end, I would like to read you just briefly, it's very short, the description of the process that's required for a notice of exemption or an exemption determination, the process that's required as it's set forth by the leading treatise on the subject. This is from the Practice Under the California Environmental Quality Act treatise, section 5.114. This is by the leading experts on CEQA. The heading is, number 1, no required procedure. And it goes on to explain, CEQA does not require public agencies to follow any specific procedure in approving activities that are exempt. An agency is not required to provide any notice to the public or other agencies that it is considering whether an activity it is going to carry out or approve is exempt. The agency need not provide an opportunity to review or comment on the exemption, and it need not hold a hearing on its exemption determination. An agency is not required to prepare an initial study or other form of written determination to show that a project is exempt. An agency is not, because an agency is not required to make a written determination, a project's approval cannot be challenged on the ground that the agency's determination was documented after the project was approved. That's the end of the quoted language. And I honestly don't know how it could be any clearer. The city's CEQA exemption determination did more than it was required to do to provide public notice, and there's no basis for asking it to do more. In fact, LAFCO does not have the discretion to send the city back through a process that the law doesn't require. And on that point, I will cite a case. I invite your attention to the 2018 case of Bettini versus City of San Diego. In that case, the court emphasized that exemptions that clearly apply cannot be ignored. If LAFCO believes that CEQA review is required, then LAFCO has to support that conclusion with facts and law and prepare its own CEQA document. Our view is that that would be a vast waste of time and resources, and that the application should move forward as it has languished long enough. Again, I appreciate the opportunity to review these issues, and I would at this point turn it back over to Phil Williams for the rest of the city's presentation.
Thank you, Andrea. And speaking to the final issue, the issue of whether we needed an updated SOI from either the city or the Sand District before our application can be determined to be complete. Let's be clear on just a few points. First, the sphere of influence, ladies and gentlemen, is a line on a map. The law and the Cal LAFCO website on its homepage define a sphere of influence as, quote, a planning boundary outside of an agency's legal boundary, such as a city limit line, that designates the agency's probable future boundary and service area, end quote. It's a line on a map where an agency may grow or where it may provide services in the future. That's what an SOI is. Second, the city has a sphere of influence. I only mention this because one of the many issues we have had to contend with in the past year is the absurd and unfounded suggestion that the city's sphere of influence is somehow, quote unquote, outdated, that it's been somehow vitiated or annulled or abrogated. But this is nonsense. An agency either has a sphere of influence or it does not have a sphere of influence. And since the commission's determinations are final and conclusive, see Government Code Section 56107, subdivision B, and the commission's last determination on our sphere of influence was to create it, the only logical conclusion is that the city's sphere is alive and well after all. To find anything else is to create a determination that this body, the commission, did not make. Third, there is no requirement in the law for a quote updated SOI in order to proceed with changes in organization like the detachment. It simply doesn't exist in law. It therefore reflects a significant policy decision by LAFCO staff, which I suggest and respectfully has profound implications for the future of the Ukiah Valley and the place some of us call home, and which, with all respect, is frankly above LAFCO staff's pay grade. A decision of that weight and import can only be made by our elected representatives, this commission, who are charged to weigh that decision's consequences for all of us. If LAFCO staff's concern is about the need for information, which is entirely valid, I see nothing missing from the record before you, the 250 pages currently before you, including the city's most recent municipal services review that prevents it from making the decision that our application is complete and ready to be considered. I struggle to understand how an updated SOI informs a decision about whether to detach territory from an area that is already within the city's limits. Recall the definition of above about a sphere of influence, a planning area outside the agency's jurisdiction, such as the city limits. The detachment does not seek to detach an area outside the city's SOI or even an area outside of the city's own city limits. By insisting on an updated SOI, do we intend to shrink the city? The request seems to me to be completely irrelevant to the analysis before you. And what possible result from the updated SOI would provide LAFCO staff the information they need, which they do not already have? Likewise, the argument that you need an updated SOI for the Sand District is just as unreasonable and illogical. The discussion about whether to detach an area from what's already within the city limits from the Sand District and whether the Sand District's SOI informs that decision is just frankly entirely irrelevant when you're talking about detaching an area that is already within the city's limits. It is irrelevant on its face, unless of course we are assumed to live not in the Ukiah Valley, but the Sanitation Valley, in which case I'd appreciate knowing that. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry, but this should be clear as day, and yet here we are. Fourth, it's LAFCO's job to perform sphere of influence updates. It is not the city's. The city cannot perform sphere of influence updates. LAFCO must, but it has not, and it has not done so for over 35 years. 35 years. That LAFCO would fail to perform a statutory obligation to update spheres of influence, quote, every 5 years as necessary, end quote. And then when the city acts to move on that sphere of influence, responds with, well, we can't process your application because we haven't done our job, is to compound nonfeasance with nonfeasance, to add inaction upon inaction and dereliction upon dereliction. And we go nowhere. But meanwhile, lots of documents being generated, lots of analysis, lots of consultants and lawyers just turning that crank, making a lot of money. Ladies and gentlemen, we go nowhere in the Ukiah Valley. It's time we escape from this black hole of nothingness, this pit of persistent paralysis, and move forward into the light of day. No one knows what that day will bring, certainly not me, but I say let it come. And only you hold the keys. You are the gatekeepers. And I say, open the gate, let us into the light of day, and let's begin to move forward again so that we can have robust, open discussion about how we got here. How did we get here? And far more importantly, where do we go from here? Because we all inherit things, ladies and gentlemen. I understand that. But the question is what we will do with that inheritance. Ladies and gentlemen, in asking you to finally resolve these issues, we are asking for nothing more than that you are allowed to do your job and that you exercise the authority and responsibility granted you under the law and our neighbors. Thank you for your time and your consideration. Subject to any questions, which we're happy to answer, that concludes our prepared comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Williams. We did provide you with 10 additional minutes.
I appreciate that, sir.
You're welcome. At this time, we'll go back to commissioners for any questions.
Chair Orth, may I ask Mr. Williams to please unshare his screen?
Thank you, Mr. Williams. Okay, at this time, we'll start with Commissioner Ignacio.
I still will continue to reserve time. Thank you.
Commissioner Ward, please.
No questions at this time.
Commissioner Fattenberger.
I'll reserve my questions at this point.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
One question, I guess, for Mr. Williams. Looking at some of the documents, because I looked, I guess, at first in your city resolution, but it looks like you attached attachments that spelled out that you were exempting yourself from CEQA. Is that correct? That they came in as looks like additional documents in CD that had the documents or something were presented at some point with the resolution. Is that how that went? I'm just looking for a timeline.
I think what happened, sir, was when we submitted our application, the justification of proposal form has a question about CEQA, and so we specifically detailed the CEQA exemptions in that answer.
Okay, but that wasn't covered in the original resolution you did with the city. Is that correct? Or the original resolution didn't spell out the exemption?
Well, I think the new resolution does address the exemption, sir, but I'll check. I think it does.
Okay. All right. That's all I have for now.
Thank you,
Commissioner. I'd also highlight, according to Ms. Matarazzo, I'm not sure it matters if I understand her presentation.
Okay. Commissioner McGortney, please. Any questions?
No questions at this time.
Okay. Questions from Commissioner Muller.
Thank you. I had a question for Mr. White. Are there any separate or different water districts that also serve the area within the city limits?
One moment here. There are. There is one small pocket of Willow County Water District that overlaps the city. I believe there is an overlap of Millview in the city, but I don't believe there's any overlap in customers there.
Okay, then Commissioner Benzani. Do you have any questions?
I believe she dropped off the call.
Thank you. Commissioner Roden, please. Any questions?
Just a clarification, please. I'm looking at 6A on the agenda, and what we're doing here is considering and possibly taking action on the City of Ukiah's appeal of executive officer's determination for the city's application for detachment. And it's just the use of the word appeal and the use of the word determination. I mean, I think they're usually the commission makes a determination, but in this case, the commission hasn't even considered the application. So I just want some clarification or confirmation that it's not in a technical appeal with a capital A. It's that that the city is coming forward asking the commission to reconsider what staff has determined. It's not a formal determination. So just clarification from staff. Do I have that correct?
Uma?
Thank you. The city is appealing the executive officer's determination of an incomplete application. Staff does not make any decision on on approval of an application. This is a determination on the process of the application and where that is. The way applications work is we receive an application once it is received in office, we do a 30-day review for completeness. We identify items that are outstanding, and we send a letter of incomplete and let them know what is needed to make a complete application. And that is where it was left in 2014 and where it is now.
Thank you.
Commissioner Winkle, do you have any questions? Is he still with us? Okay, alternate Winkle has dropped off as well, I see.
I believe so.
Okay, I'll reserve my questions. We will go to public comment now. I'll invite comments from the public, and I see at least one member of the public ready to make comment. Is this Ms. Fox for the Ukiah Sand District? Go ahead.
Oh, sure. Thank you. Winksy, Interim General Manager for the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District. And I'm not here to comment on whether the city's application is complete or not, but there were comments made that there would be no difference to overlap customers in the case of detachment, and that there are no clear specifics regarding the district taking issue with some of the financial information that was presented in the plan for services. And I just want to make the point that it's unclear whether there'd be a rate impact to customers. The district and the city don't have the same rate structures. So, we haven't sat down with the city to work out the financial information, again, that was presented. The transfer of expenses and particularly the transfer of the debt component is really complicated, and we haven't worked through that. So Mr. Williams in his communications, he keeps referring to having the people of Ukiah Valley's best interest in mind. And I'd really like to hold him to that statement by asking him and the city to de-escalate the issue of detachment as much as possible and to keep incendiary comments to a minimum. Please allow the staff to sit down and work through the numbers together. We've reached out to the city who have agreed to sit down to work through some of these issues. And we all want to ensure that both the overlap customers and the remaining district customers aren't saddled with unreasonable rates after detachment. So again, I'm not here to comment on the completion of the application itself, but just responding to some of the comments that were made in regards to the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have additional public comment in the waiting room?
We had Josh Nelson, who pre-registered to speak.
Hi, this is Josh Nelson, Counsel for the Sanitation District. No additional comments at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments at this time?
There's no one in the waiting room.
Thank you. Okay, at this time, staff has recommended three potential outcomes here. One, postpone the item to allow additional time for staff review and response, which I believe is their primary request. Two, uphold the executive officer's determination. Or three, overturn the executive officer's determination and assume lead agency status. And so at this point in time, I'll open it, well, first to discussion and potential motion. Let's go through discussion first. Commissioner Ignacio.
Thank you, Chair. It's my position right now to uphold the executive officer's determination. incomplete application or application that's not able to be acted upon because of the details provided. And that is all I'll say at this time.
Commissioner Frottenberger.
I would echo Commissioner Ignacio's statements.
Commissioner Gonzalez, please.
You know, I have a lot of questions for staff, and I guess, but I almost kind of need to do more research on this. So if I'm feeling bad, I guess I'm kind of leaning towards a number one, because I may go either way on the other ones down the road. But for right now, I'm feeling like I need a lot more information. That's all I want to say at the moment.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner McGortney.
So I'm leaning towards number three. I don't understand what we're going to gain by having more time spent on this. Given that this is inside of city limits, I don't really see that CEQA would apply. It'd be one thing if they were expanding their services outside of their jurisdiction. I am concerned about being sure that any financial issues are addressed, so that no one's left holding the bag for expenses unreasonably, or that a rate change would be in a situation where somebody would be taken advantage of or a burden put upon. So if that was worked out, I'd be fine for this application to move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Mulhern.
Thank you. I think it's important for the commission to know and understand that that financial implication would be something that would come forward with the application. And our determination for today is to decide whether or not we want to hear that application. And what I would like to do is to look at the three items that are at the staff impasse and see if the commission could come to a resolution regarding those three items. If we could, we may be able to hear the application, which will actually get some of our questions answered.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Benzani. She's dropped off, I see.
She is dying.
Okay. Commissioner Roden.
Thank you. Well, obviously I'm not a voting member of LAFCO, but I concur with what Commissioner Mulhern just said. I think, and where there's so much documentation in the record right now to contradict, staff's reasons for their determination to not have the application go forward, that we need to let it go forward, have commissioners consider these different legal arguments and move forward. So that's my opinion.
Thank you, Commissioner. Okay, before we go to look for a motion, I'm leaning towards staff recommendation, which is to postpone and allow additional time for staff review and response. Given the many questions we've had here, we do have the three items. I do listen intently to the CEQA exemption issue that requires prior to CEQA being engaged in law, that there is a exemption that's pretty broad because the sewer services were being provided. So at least on that issue, I'm a little more comfortable. So I do think with a little more time, staff can come forward with a recommendation, but I'm looking for a motion. That's just my say. I'm not going to make a motion, obviously. So I open the floor to any motion by commissioners and then seek a second. I'll recognize you, Commissioner Mulhern.
Sure. I make a motion that the board, the commissioners discuss today, the three items that are at an impasse before moving forward.
Is there a second to that motion?
Yes, I will second that.
I'll open for discussion. Let's see, Commissioner Ignacio. Speaking.
Actually, I'd like to hear from
Council.
Council
Okay.
Brown, please.
Okay, we'll go to Council Brown to speak.
I could not hear the proposed motion. I'd like to hear it repeated.
Staff, can you repeat the motion? Or would you prefer the person who made the motion to repeat it?
Sure. The motion was to discuss the items of impasse before moving forward. And those are located on page 35 of the agenda packet.
And is that meant discussing further in this meeting, discussing outside this meeting? When would such a discussion propose to be take place?
Now, sir, I believe that we've heard from the sanitation district attorney that they don't have objections to the city's appeal, and that they are also looking forward to hearing the application. So if this Board of Commissioners has the ability to move forward to have that conversation, I think that that would allow us, it would allow everybody to have the opportunity to move forward and have that conversation at a different meeting. But because this item was agendized and staff explicitly listed the impasses, I think that this commission could discuss those 3 items.
When? Today? Okay.
Right now.
Okay. So you want to continue and not continue the item, but make a decision today.
I would like the commission to have a conversation about the 3 items that were listed by staff as to why they're at an impasse. We may get to a point after that conversation, if we took them one by one, where we were either ready to move forward with an application, we were not ready to move forward on 1 or 2 items. We may not be ready to move forward on all 3, but I think it's important, you know, we're talking about trying to make things more consistent, and for the LAFCO commissioners to be able to represent a standard that we should expect going forward. And in order to have that opportunity for, you know, future items like this, I think that this is it to clearly outline what the expectations of the commissioners moving forward is on these 3 items is important.
Okay, going for further discussion on the motion. Commissioner McCourtney.
Does the motion have a second?
I made a motion for a second.
Okay, thank you. I'm just going down my list, folks. Let's see. Commissioner Roden hasn't spoken to the motion yet.
Well, I'm not a voting member, but I support the motion. I think it's about time.
Again, I was an alternate for 20 years on LAFCO, and I definitely like to speak to motions, even though I did not vote.
Thank you.
Is there any commission? Oh, Commissioner Ward, I'm sorry. There you are in the corner. Would you speak?
Unmuted.
Questions?
I don't have any comment right now. I'm going to wait for the vote.
Okay, then I'll call staff to conduct the, first of all, staff, do you have any comment to the motion?
No comment.
Thank you. Then can we go ahead?
Question, Chair? if you
Yes.
don't mind. So I believe I'm going to understand that 6A is to consider and take action on the executive officer's determination whether we're going to appeal or not. Is it the intent of this motion is to move that process forward, I hope, today? Or is this is this the final action we're taking on this, even though that's not the action that we're hearing about on the agenda?
Go ahead, Council Brown, speak to the question.
Okay, as I understand the motion is, the issue was whether to continue this so that staff could do further or not, is what I understand it. And I think the motion is, let's not continue it. Let's go forward and consider it today.
I'd like to hear that being the motion then.
Okay,
Wasn't the motion, sir?
go ahead and state your motion, Claire.
Thank you. My motion is for this board to discuss the 3 items that staff listed as an impasse. That is not to consider the application for detachment by the city of Ukiah. My motion is to continue having right now this conversation regarding the 3 items that were listed. Before we direct staff to find more information, we have 3 items, and I think it would be important for them to understand what our questions were on those 3 items. And this is our first time having both the city appeal information as well as staff's information as to why they disagree. And I think that it would be important for this Board of Commissioners to have that conversation in a public setting.
Commissioner Flottenberger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Forgive me for not understanding this, but it seems like that's exactly what we were doing, and we've been given several opportunities to actually discuss this, and people that have had questions have made those questions and posed those questions, and those that do not have not forwarded their questions or comments or concerns. I would say that we have already, as part of this 6A.
6A.
That was the actual discussion that we were either partaking in or not partaking in.
Okay, well, at this point, we're going to have to go for the roll call vote.
Wait, can I make a
clarification?
Yeah, I mean, so it's my understanding that Commissioner Mulhern's motion would, that if we can address the impasses presented by staff, we could foresee the city's application coming before the commission. It's a way to, to remove a barrier, a roadblock, and then we can move forward. And so that's my understanding. Just to clarify for Commissioner Ignacio and Fronenberger, that's what we would be doing. And then in a future time, hopefully, it wouldn't take too long, the commission could then hear the application, review the application. But at this point, it hasn't gotten to the commission yet. We're trying to remove these road barriers, these impasses, address them, and then let the application move forward. So that's why, if I were voting, I would support Ms. Mulhern's motion.
Again, this is the first motion that's come forward for a vote. It needs to be measured against the commission's desires and to see whether we'll need additional motions if it fails. If it's supported, then we'll continue with this discussion on the 3 items, I believe, as a continued discussion today. Is that not the gist of this motion?
I believe that's the case.
So could we please go ahead and have our roll call vote?
Yes, you can. Commissioner Mulhern.
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty.
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez.
No, at the moment.
Okay. Commissioner Ward.
No.
Commissioner Fronberger.
No.
Commissioner Ignacio.
No.
Commissioner Orth. Chair Orth.
I'm also a no.
Thank you.
And with
I
that,
believe the motion fails.
this motion did fail, so I'm looking for an additional motion for resolve.
Chair, it's this commissioner's belief that you have the ability to invite discussion if Commissioner Mulhern would like to still have that, but I don't see it as a decisive action on this agenda topic.
We could go for another motion, and then once it's on the floor, we can have further discussion.
Chair, Commissioner Ignacio.
Yes.
I move that we uphold the executive officer's determination and deny the appeal from the city.
Does that include assuming the lead agency status?
No, sir. This is item 2.
Excuse me. Okay, thank you. Is there a second to that motion?
Unmuted. I will second it. Commissioner Ward seconds it.
So the motion is live. We'll go through our discussion, starting with the, let's see, go ahead, Commissioner Gonzalez.
I guess I can't postpone this because I'm kind of stuck in the middle in the sense of where I'm at, and that I still have some questions, but questions that I think could be resolved at the next meeting. That's kind of where I'm at right now.
Okay. Commissioner Mulhern, please.
Sure, I would appreciate so a conversation about the 3 items that were listed at the impasse. Is it the maker of the motion's intent that that they fully agree with all 3 of those items for the City of Ukiah's application to be moved forward?
Chair, chance to respond.
Yes, please.
Commissioner Mulhern, you referring to the items on page 35 of 362? Just want to confirm. Staff said pass. Staff said pass, right? All right. No, that is not my intent.
Okay, moving on. Commissioner Roden.
Well, I just missed the question and the response there. Could you please repeat, Commissioner Ignacio, what is not your intent?
Commissioner Mulhern, I believe, asked me if it was my intent with the motion to agree to the 3 items on page 35 of 362, which I replied, no.
So you believe that these really are legitimate issues that that LAFCO staff has that warrant the application not to be heard and brought forward? You do?
Actually, that's twice in one sentence. I think you tried to put words in my mouth.
I'm trying to understand. No, I'm not trying to. I'm just trying to understand. I don't understand what you're saying. I'm not.
I made a motion that we move forward based on staff recommendation to uphold the executive officer's determination. What part of that do you need help with?
Okay, moving on.
I'm happy to respond, but I think the motion was quite clear. This other
I guess
other commissioners tell me what I'm thinking. It just doesn't work for me. I'd just rather get to the basic black letter of my motion.
I don't know how you're hearing that. I'm just trying to be clear. I guess I've heard and I've heard from the presentations by the City of Ukiah attorney and staff and special counsel and CEQA, a lot of evidence that contradicts, that goes against what staff has said. And so it's surprising that the commissioners wouldn't want to look at these things and consider them more deeply, because these are important, very important issues that are affecting thousands of people who live in the Ukiah Valley. And we as a commission have a job to do here. We have complex issues before us, and it just boggles my mind that we would just pass on these and not consider them further. So just trying to make sure that what I heard was correct.
Okay, Commissioner McCourtney.
Yeah, I'm sort of wondering the same thing, is that here we are, we're all together, we've got the issues in front of us, we've had presentations supporting Ukiah's point of view. And I'm just wondering, what is staff going to come back with that we don't already have in front of us? And why are you reluctant to move forward? Please tell me. I'm curious.
Is that directed to me?
Yes.
I think we are moving forward. We've gone through the presentation made by staff, and based on the recommendations to move this meeting forward and the future of Ukiah, I have selected a motion that I thought would best represent us doing exactly that. I don't like seeing delays in the efficiency of government, which I believe you, Commissioner McCourtney, I've been hearing it. I'm sorry, McGordy. Thank you. You know, you talked about earlier several times about the efficiency of boards and bodies of organization. We're looking at setting a precedent that it's okay to use data that is nearly 35 years old. I was saying 40, but you know, council on behalf of the city is correct. It's more closer to 35 years old. And if we say yes to this, how do we judge anything different in the future? Now, I think the presentation we heard earlier and the 360 pages I've been working on since Thursday, this is what I've come to. And I think it's the best action to move forward. Now, it is a motion, not unlike the one that you just seconded. And I think the vote will tell us where we're going to go next.
Well, just to understand, so you feel that we can't move forward until the sphere of influence document has been reissued and updated? Is that correct?
I think we need a complete application that's approvable by LAFCO. That's what's correct.
Okay, Commissioner Plottenberger.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I would agree. I would like to echo that last comment that Mr. Ignacio just stated, but also getting back to my point before, we have had a presentation from our staff. We have had a presentation from the city staff. We have already listened to what the staff impasses are, the city's arguments, our staff arguments. Rehashing it and continuing this forward is spinning our wheels. I would strongly suggest that we continue, and I would like to call the question.
Well, I haven't spoken yet, so I would just see the controversy that's surrounding the question, and whether we move forward and how we move forward is critical to resolving the issues before us. And I prefer staff's recommendation to take a little more time and come back at our next meeting so that staff has a little more time to flesh out their answers, given the conversations that they've been hearing here today. And I'll go to the Commissioner Mulhern.
Thank you. Point of clarification. I've asked several times about the 3 items that are an impasse. And so then it sounds like Commissioner Ignacio and Commissioner Fromberger believe that every time there is a new governing body, the resolution needs to be updated before it can go to an application. And I have concerns about that. There are many things that occurred on a city council, for instance, before I was on it that I didn't necessarily seek to overturn. I'm concerned about that that sentiment moving forward, that something that a previous governing body had already agreed with would be overturned simply because 2 years later somebody else was elected or what have you. So that's very concerning to me. That's why I had asked that we could please discuss each of the 3 items, but it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. So I wanted to just make that very clear. Thank you.
And I'll make clear my hope that there is an alternate motion that would give us more time, and which in a future agenda item, we would be able to resolve those 3 items. However, we have a motion on the floor. And is there any further commissioner questions or comments or by staff? There being none, let's go ahead and do the roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Mulhern. Commissioner McGorty,
No.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
No, for the reasons I stated.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
I'll vote no.
Thank you. I believe the motion fails.
So once more, I'm open for discussion and potential motion. I'll recognize Commissioner Gonzalez.
I will move forward staff's recommendation 1 and request that it come back at the next meeting.
Thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Yes, Mo, excuse me.
I will second that motion if the first would agree that each of the 3 items that are an impasse be brought forward with various options for the commissioners to discuss.
I will make said amendment to my motion.
Commissioner Ignacio will support this motion as well.
Okay, is there any further questions or discussion from commissioners on this motion? Commissioner McGortney, and excuse me if I mispronounce names. Again, I'm dyslexic and I pronounce as I read, and my mind does differently all the time. It's just, I've had to live with it.
Okay, you're excused. It's McGorty. But so would the motion include, please, what that option is, just so, because I don't have the item in front of me.
Mr. Chair, would you like me to read the 3 items that are listed as an impasse?
Well, let's go ahead back to our motioner and he can repeat his motion as amended.
The motion as amended would be to take staff recommendation of postpone item to allow additional time for staff to review and response. The request that I believe Mo had in there that I agreed with was that with that, when it comes back to us, it would come back with the 3 items in dispute with possible recommendations. Is that correct, Mo?
Yes, I can read them for the record if the chair would like me to do that.
Go ahead.
Sure. The staff impasse items listed on page 35 are: number 1, the need for a new resolution of application. 2, the need for the city to act as lead agency and explicitly address CEQA. Number 3, the need for the city and UVSD MSR SOI updates prior to issuing a certificate of filing.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Is there any public comment? I am sorry for not having asked for that prior to making a roll call vote. There being none, go ahead, staff, and conduct the roll call vote.
I think you had some questions from Cronenberg and Ward, I think. Scott.
I didn't see that. Go ahead, Commissioner Ward.
I didn't have any questions.
Okay, and Farnberger, did you have, Commissioner Farnberger, did you have a question?
I put my hand up because I was going to say we need to make sure that we pass this off to the public first before we make an actual consideration. So, but you grabbed it just as I was putting my hand up. So,
thank you. I'm sorry it was an afterthought at all.
Council Brown has a comment.
Council Brown.
Just a clarification. In reality, staff has not had an opportunity to respond to the 200 and sub pages from the city. And so we're presuming that if this motion passes, it will give us an opportunity to respond to those comments.
I believe that is correct, and also develop options for the commission to consider at our next meeting. With that, let's go ahead and conduct our roll. Mr. Williams, your hand is up. Comment, please.
I'm sorry, 240 pages of those, Mr. Brown, are exhibits that we've been providing to LAFCO staff for a year. The concept that we just dumped 260 pages on you, gave you, is not exactly accurate, sir. The 10-page letter we gave you a week ago summarizing our efforts for the past year, that we asked you to respond to.
And by this motion, hopefully we will be within a month, next meeting. We'll have some responses for you. Again, any further comments?
Mari has a comment.
Yeah, I just, you know, I anticipate that we're going to be in the same place next month, which is okay, but that we as commissioners ought to be prepared to really dive into the issues and be, you know, be strong in looking at, you know, weighing legal opinions, reading what is, you know, what does it say in the law? What legal, because if we're not able to do that, if we're not able to do that, then, you know, I'm afraid that we aren't going to be fulfilling our mandates here. So anyway, I just admonish us to really look deeply into these issues. That's all. Because if we're not doing it today, we'll probably have to do it in a month.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there any further comments? So let's go ahead. Julie, are you trying to say something, Commissioner Ward?
No, I just went to mood again because I know there's going to be a vote.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead with the roll call vote, please.
Okay, Commissioner Frohnberger,
No.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern. Oh, I didn't catch your answer. Commissioner Mulhern?
It was a yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Ward?
No.
Chair Orth?
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes.
Thank you, Commission, members of the public, and both city and LAFCO staff for this rather long item. We will be returning to this item. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We'll now move on to 6B, which is the proposed policy amendments regarding indemnification agreements and application options. I'll request the UMA go ahead with the staff presentation, please.
Thank you. During our April meeting, staff reported on a new case, the San Luis Obispo LAFCO versus the City of Pismo, that decided that LAFCOs have no authority to require indemnifications as a condition for processing an application. Earlier this month, the Policies and Procedures Committee met to review options for alternatives to the indemnification requirement. Options considered included those on page 306 of your agenda packet and as attachment 2 on page 309. The committee considered the options and public input and is recommending replacing a required indemnification with a voluntary indemnification agreement, which, if signed, would indemnify LAFCO against third-party lawsuits. Should an applicant decide not to sign the voluntary indemnification agreement, LAFCO would have the option not to defend its decisions. Should the commission approve the voluntary indemnification agreement approach, staff recommends modifying policies 11.4.3 and 11.4.8 to reflect the change, and those are included in your staff report on page 306. Additionally, there is a proposed voluntary indemnification agreement included in your packet as attachment 3 on page 311. That concludes my presentation and can answer questions.
Okay, if I'm going to go to Commissioner Ward for questions first, and then it'll just be hands up for further questions by commissioners. I can't see Commissioner Ward, so if you have any questions. Commissioner Ward?
I don't have any questions this time.
Okay, then further questions, would you please just raise your hand and I'll go to you. I guess we got worked up over the last one. I'll go to and request, is there any public comments to the item?
Mr. Williams pre-registered for this item.
Mr. Williams, we recognize you.
Thanks, sir. I have no comments other than I'm very glad to see that we're finally here.
You're welcome. There is forward progress. Okay. Staff, do you have any comments, further comments based upon the basically no questions? It seems like this is moving forward. Do you have any comment? Council, any comments?
No, I think this is something we at staff level recommend as a way of dealing with the situation without totally changing things around.
Chair Ward, this is Chair Ward.
Yes, Ward.
I'll make a motion to approve item number 2, the voluntary indemnification agreement, and direct staff to include with the application packets and post to the website.
Second.
I'll second.
Let's see, I thought I heard 2 seconds, but okay, we'll go with Gonzalez on this one. And with that, any further discussion from the public or the commissioners? There being none, can we have a roll call vote on the matter?
Yes. Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner McGorty,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
With that, we'll move on to item 6C, the proposed policy for electronic signatures. To consider and take action on the Policy and Procedures Committee recommendations regarding the draft electronic signature policy. Staff, would you make a presentation, please?
Thank you, Chair Orth. The Policies and Procedures Committee considered the proposed electronic signature policy at its April 13th meeting and recommends it to the Commission for approval. The policy provides the option for use of electronic signatures and to what it would apply. It also specifies acceptable technologies for e-signatures, providing that those are on the approved list of digital signature certified authorities that is certified by the California Secretary of State. Staff recommends approval of the proposed policy with adoption of the resolution, and the proposed policy is on page 315 of your agenda packet.
We'll start again with Commissioner Ward for any questions.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. Does this include checks too, for savings bank checks?
It does not include the checks. We would have to look into that a little. It doesn't exclude it either. That's something we could look into as far as the tech, whether those are approved by the Secretary of State.
It would be very, very supportive if we could, because you know the difficulties of getting down to Ukiah and get checks signed in a timely manner. So I would like to see if we can get that included.
Would you like that? That will need to be researched. So today we can still move forward on the policy and come back with any change necessary to accommodate that. So is there any further questions by commissioners? Please raise your hand. I have one comment, and that is just clean up. My legal name is Charles A. Orth, and I suspect I need that to be my signature for future documents I sign for the commission. The A is Anthony, which is where Tony comes from. And with that, I'm looking for a motion to adopt resolution 2020-2106. Oh,
So moved.
excuse me, I need to go to the public first for comments. Are there any public comments? Anyone in the waiting room wishing to speak on this matter?
No one in the waiting room.
Thank you. Then let's go ahead and look for the motion, please.
Ignacio seconds McGordy's motion, and I also support future amendment if the Secretary of State accepts signatures on checks.
Thank you. Discussion on the motion. Is there any questions? And we'll go to Commissioner Ward first.
No questions.
Thank you. Raise your hand, other commissioners, if you wish to speak further on this issue. I'm seeing none. And I, again, don't believe there's any further public comment. Is that correct, Uma?
That is correct.
Then thank you. Let's go ahead to the roll call vote.
Commissioner McGordy,
Aye.
Commissioner Mulhern,
Yes.
Commissioner Ward,
Yes.
Commissioner Ignacio,
Yes.
Commissioner Frohnberger,
Yes.
Commissioner Gonzalez,
Yes.
Chair Orth.
Yes.
Thank you. The motion passes unanimously.
Thank you to staff for that. Goodness. Okay, the next item for the agenda is 6D, update on the proposed sphere of influence policy amendments. This is to receive the update from staff on the status and outreach efforts for the proposed sphere of influence policy amendments. And staff, would you please make your presentation?
Thank you, Chair Orth. This item is an update on the proposed SOI policy updates, and we are providing this because there were a number of questions over the last couple of months from commissioners on the status of this. Earlier this year, the commission considered the policy changes and directed additional outreach to cities and the special districts. The Policies and Procedures Committee did discuss this item and outreach for the policy changes and receive public input on the item on April 13th. The result of that was that we have scheduled a workshop with the Policies and Procedures Committee that will be held on May 11th from 3 to 5. There is a flyer included in your agenda packet on page 319, and we have posted it on our website as well. So we'll be doing outreach on that and sending that out again with the agenda packet. The workshop will also be be held during the regular Policies and Procedures Committee. We have distributed the flyer to all of the special districts, the cities, and the county, and to solicit their interest and encourage participation in the discussion and workshop. And that's all I have for the presentation.
Thank you, E.O. Hinman. And at this point, I have a hand up. Commissioner Mulhern.
Thank you. I do believe that the Board of Supervisors may have a special meeting on that date, so I will need to confirm if that meeting is anticipated to be done by 3 o'clock.
Let's see, we have two supervisors with us, so I imagine that's the same issue. Okay. Any further? Mr. Williams, Well, excuse me a moment. Commissioner Ward, do you have any questions?
No, I don't have any more questions. Thanks.
Do any other commissioners have questions at this time? Then we'll go to the public and I'll call on Mr. Williams.
Thank you, sir. My observation may just echo Ms. Mulhern's, but the second Tuesday of the month is typically when various bodies across the state meet. And it just generally makes it difficult to get the right people in the room at the right time. I will observe specifically on the 11th, State Water Board is going to be moving on some drought actions. So I know the 11th is difficult for me as I'm working for the Ukiah Valley to try to keep water in the Ukiah Valley. So just the observation I would make to ask people to take under consideration is, you know, the second Tuesday of the month is pretty busy for folks and may get more robust and more informed participation if you change the date. Thank you.
Chair Orth.
Williams, yes.
Just in selecting the state, we did a lot of outreach to the agencies and as well as the committee members to make sure that that date would work for folks, and including sending out doodle polls to try, and we received no indication at that time that there were scheduling conflicts, but I can certainly reach out to the Policies and Procedures Committee and confirm that that date will work.
I think the supervisors will confirm that the added meeting of the 11th happened recently and was not perceived possibly when you held that poll. So,
Correct.
Yes. Glenn, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just said that's correct. So this has happened probably since the poll was taken. And we apologize for that.
Thank you.
So does staff have any public comments to read in the record?
No comments on this item and no one in the waiting room.
Thank you. Last discussion round for commissioners. I'll of course start with the whole, if staff could hold open the meeting date just to confirm whether the supervisors will be available. Hopefully the item there, I did see that the staff to the supervisors said they had full agendas, and that's always concerning when you're trying to meet a timeline. So I think we should be open to rescheduling if necessary prior to our next board meeting. Yes, go ahead.
Sometimes we can end our meetings a little bit early for the Board of Supervisors if it's a special meeting, if we have another one to get to. So, you know, maybe we can work this out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that suggestion. Commissioner Mulhern, do you agree?
Thank you. Yeah, I wanted to mention that I can work with staff and Supervisor McGorty to make sure that that gets updated, and hopefully you won't have to change the date that the other districts have already been able to meet. So I'll get in touch with our executive officer as soon as possible.
Thank you.
Thank you. I believe this was a item that doesn't require further action by the commission. So
Correct.
Thank you. Unless there's further questions, we'll move on. I'm not seeing any further questions. So we'll move on to number 7, information and report items. And we'll go to 7A, work plan, current and future proposals. Let's go ahead to staff to present, please.
Thank you. This is the status of our applications, proposals, and work plan. Under active applications or proposals, we currently have 5. The first one is the City of Ukiah Detachment, which we have, I think, discussed enough today. The City of Ukiah's annexation of city-owned properties, we are still waiting for some additional information to continue processing that, although we have initiated the revenue and tax code tax share negotiation process with the county Controller's Office, Auditor's Office. The City of Ukiah also has a pre-application for annexation of areas north of the city. We have that has been dormant the last month. The Ukiah Valley Fire District pre-application for annexation of the City of Ukiah. We have coordinated with Mr. Williams on that within the last month, and we are awaiting the application. We have also had some coordination with the Millview County Water District regarding a pre-application for annexation of the Masonite properties. And they are in the process of preparing an application for that as well. We have also been active in a potential future proposal, which is the City of Ukiah's annexation of the Western Hills Home properties. We have provided comments on their initial referral and are in the process of reviewing their draft initial study mitigating negative declaration. As far as the work plan goes, we have spoken with the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District staff who have, as I mentioned earlier, had discussed with their board the sphere of influence and potential funding options for getting that one started. They did receive direction from their board to work with LAFCO staff to move that one forward. So we are coming up with some funding options for that one. And then the City of Ukiah, we are still working on the agreement, the MOU with the City of Ukiah. So that one is still going back and forth between our attorneys. The Ukiah Valley Fire District, we anticipate that report will track with the application, with the fire district's application for annexation of the city. So we have that one started and are waiting for information that we anticipate will come with that application. The county service area number 3, we have has been on hold through the COVID-19 pandemic. We have, in an attempt to get that one moving again, we have started with our GIS folks at the county who are developing a map for us, and that will be kind of our initial step towards moving that one again. And then because we've had delays with our other work plan tasks, even though the Covelo CSD Community Services District was actually scheduled, tentatively scheduled for next fiscal year, we have moved that one forward. I have subcontracted that out, and we anticipate an administrative draft this month. So hopefully we will have, we would like to have a public draft or a public workshop for that in July, depending on the timing of the review of the administrative draft. And that's all I have for the presentation, if anyone has questions.
Are there any questions? Commissioner Ward, do you have a question?
Yes, thank you. Ume, wasn't it our policy, and maybe it's not in our actual policies, but we do not look at any annexations until we have an updated MSR SOI?
Yes, that has been our practice.
So if there's applications coming in for annexation from the City of Ukiah, shouldn't we have the SOI updated as well?
That has been our stance, and that was part of the issues of that identified by staff for that detachment of sanitation district areas.
Okay, very good. Thank you. And no, that's all. That's all I have. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Ward. Any further questions of commissioners? Yes, go ahead, Glenn.
So I'm taking that this is going to be a real issue, is the SOI and the City of Ukiah moving forward on annexation or changes. So that should be kind of a priority of this board. Is that correct?
Sorry. Yes, the spheres of influence for both the City of Ukiah and the Ukiah Valley Sanitation District are very outdated and need to be updated, which in doing that will give this commission a big picture look at the services and the provision of services in the Ukiah Valley area. And until that is done, it makes it very difficult for this commission to make any informed decisions about annexations or detachments from these agencies within that area. We have tried to move those forward. Originally, we had tried to track the City of Ukiah sphere update with their general plan update, which would have made for the most comprehensive planning of for the area, and also would have allowed the coattailing of the CEQA portion of the sphere update. Rather than have it be a separate document, it would have been all wrapped in together. But delays from the COVID for the city's general plan update efforts have extended their process quite a bit longer. So in working with the city staff, we decided to move forward with the sphere update. Unfortunately, it's taken a number of months now to get the MOU with the city for the funding in place, and that's what's the holdup at this point. We have our consultant selected, and we have them standing by and ready to move on it as soon as we can get those agreements in place.
So for me to understand the process, like a detachment and so forth, is it the staff's position that we shouldn't move forward until we have SOI updates?
Yes, the staff's position is that we need an updated sphere before we can process the applications. And we have offered to the City of Ukiah to do a concurrent processing. So as soon as we have a complete application, to start that processing, but hold off on bringing it to public hearing until we can first adopt the sphere. That's what we have offered in order to minimize the delays at the end. So rather than wait for the sphere to be updated and then process the application, do it concurrently. The other piece to that specific application is the tax share agreement, and that has to go through the county. And once we have a substantially complete application, the main components settled, then we can start that negotiation process by initiating it with the county.
And what kind of a time frame are we looking at for that, realistically?
Typically, or what we've seen in the past, is that it's a 3 to 6 month process for that tax share negotiation to process to move through the county. However, I understand that Supervisor Mulhern has put together a task force to hopefully smooth that process out and make it a more efficient process.
Okay. Thank you.
Further questions, please, commissioners? All right, then we'll move on to our next item, which is 7B, Countywide Planning Activities Report. Go ahead, Uma, with your presentation.
We had hoped to have a presentation from Beth regarding the current water conditions, but she was not able to stay on, so we can move that to our next meeting.
Thank you very much. We'll go to 7C, correspondence.
No correspondence to speak of.
Then we'll move right into your report, Uma, on 7D.
I just have a very brief report. I want to say that we are working on reopening the office, excuse me, and holding holding regular office hours again. And those would be Tuesdays and Fridays from 9 to 1:30, I believe. And we're working on the protocols to have in place for safety. The other item that we are working on kind of at the operations level is we've had so much difficulty with Pacific Internet over the years that we are trying to find a similar cost other provider. So that has been something that staff is working on, where it's a bit of a challenge to get in the same price range, but we are continuing to work on that. And just as a note, staff is spending a lot of time on these policy developments and the, putting together these agenda packets and continuing with the to respond to various inquiries and the city's comments. And I just wanted to thank staff for all the work they're putting into this. It is a huge amount of work. And I know as staff, it can be difficult to sit and listen to criticisms. So I just wanted to thank our analyst, Larkin Filer, and our clerk, Kristen Meadows. And that's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Questions from commissioners, starting with Jerry. Commissioner Ward, please.
No questions, thank you.
Okay, any questions from commissioners? Yes, Matt, go ahead.
It's not really a question about what Uma just spoke about. I could actually speak to what you spoke about, or what Beth was asked to speak about if you'd like, but I can wait until everybody gets their chance to question staff.
We can take that under commissioner reports. Any further questions of this item to staff? I have two hands up, and we'll start with Commissioner Gonzalez and then Mulhern.
I just wanted to echo what Uma said, and I really appreciate all the work the staff is doing. And I know it went from being brakes put on because of COVID to a lot of stuff coming down. And I do feel for you guys, and I do appreciate everything you guys do.
Okay, Mo.
Thank you for that. I was going to echo a similar comment and you know, for our executive officer and our staff, the frustrations that the community feels from not having an update since 1984 is not directed at you. It's a frustration of the lack of process that we've had, and a real movement in the community to move these policies forward so that we don't have the delays that we currently have. It's important. Thank you.
Certainly agreed. Glenn, I see your hand is up.
Sure. So I want to echo the same thing. I hope that my rants today have not perceived as going to Uma. They're just sort of somebody, you know, a little bit new to the political process and just sometimes bewildered by what I see around me. And, you know, I can tell everyone here is really dedicated and cares, and especially our staff. And it appears that you're probably marginally funded in a lot of respects. And, you know, we want to help with that as time goes on and make sure part of our job is to be sure you guys have the resources that you need. So there's no excuses ever. So you're able to get your work done.
Commissioner Roden, please.
Yeah, not that you need me to reiterate, but I mean, way back in the 2000s, early noughts, you know, I was on LAFCO, and the, you know, the problems, these bottlenecks way predated your tenure as an executive officer and your team. And so I think it's just an evolutionary process of figuring out what's the best way structurally and funding wise to get things processed. So if I said anything that made anyone on your staff feel that it was personal, then I want to apologize, because I honestly don't believe it is.
Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate the comments. And I also wanted to say this under 6A, but you know, we're here to provide information to you, and we welcome you to call us and to discuss the history of the applications, or you know, where they are, why decisions were made at the staff level. So we do welcome you to contact us, and we would appreciate that opportunity to discuss them with you.
Thank you for that. And we're all still learning in life, no matter what our age. We have always more to learn, and being on a commission like this is definitely a challenge sometimes for all of us to get up to speed on some issues that have been going on for decades. And there's just no avoidance. We all know that we're facing challenges. Our citizens are asking for resolve, and we do need to move forward. With that, we'll go to committee reports. Unless there's any public comment in the background needing to ask questions.
There's no one in the waiting room.
Thank you. Then we'll go to the policies and procedures report.
Commissioner Orth, who's on the executive committee and the policy committees? I looked on our website, I didn't see it. Not that it's not there, but I did a quick look. I didn't see the names of the commissioners.
The chair and vice chair are in the executive committee. I don't remember the third just off the top of my head. You asked for names and they go out of my mind.
Who's the vice chair?
I can't say Scott, it's Ignacio. Commissioner Ignacio is our vice chair. I believe that's the executive committee. And Uma, would you name the policies and procedures committee for us?
Yes, it's Commissioners Frohnberger, Gonzalez, and Mulhern. Commissioner Mulhern is the chair.
And you yourself are a member of an ad hoc committee as well that was formed to advise staff, as you know, on this application process with the city of Ukiah and other applications moving forward in the Ukiah Valley. That's a one-year assignment until a year from now, and we'll see how all that goes. Okay, then we'll, I guess the committee report was contained in the agenda item that came forward. So we'll move to commissioner reports, comments, or questions. Let's see, I think Commissioner Ward might have dropped off. So we'll go to Commissioner Mulhern.
Thank you for that. I did want to mention that the item for a tax sharing agreement ad hoc for the county is moving forward to the Board of Supervisors on May 11th. And it is my hope that each of the independent studies will also, or each of the independent cities will also create a similar ad hoc. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners' reports today? Please raise your hand. Yes, Matt, I recognize you. You're muted.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Chair. So going to be very brief about the drought condition. I mentioned it last month. We are in uncharted water in the Russian River watershed. We have never had this low of a number at this point of the year as far as storage goes. We're, I believe, as of today, I think we're a little bit under 40% storage in Lake Mendocino. We're about 38% of our annual average rainfall. And for those of you that don't know, it's about 36 inches. So that means we've had about 12 inches, 13 inches of rain, roughly, which is unprecedented. You're going to hear that word a lot about this. We were also declared by the governor to be in a drought emergency in Lake and Mendocino County, or Sonoma and Mendocino counties. It's funny how that Lake and Mendocino County always just kind of rolls off the tongue. I don't know why, but Sonoma and Mendocino counties have been declared drought emergency. The first two areas in the state to have been done so, not to be the last, but those of you that, well, anybody that's in the county really needs to be preaching conservation right now. Those agencies that have, those water agencies that haven't put in restrictions most likely will. The state would rather not do it themselves, but because of last time, there was a lot of pushback because it's very unpopular to tell people how many times they can flush their toilet or wash their car. So the state, at first is really going to be looking towards us as local regulators and local electeds to be pushing this agenda and making sure that all of our people are aware, our constituents are aware of what's going on with the water situation. To add to that, it is imperative for those of us in the upper Russian River and the lower Russian River to continue to support the Eel River project, the diversion through Potter Valley. Right now, there's you know, a large amount of the water that's actually coming into Lake Mendocino is coming through that diversion, and it's about to be cut because of restrictions at Lake Pillsbury and on the Eel River. So just keep in mind, be mindful, and be spreading the word about this. Once again, unprecedented is going to be a word you're going to hear a lot around here over the next, well, probably, I don't even want to guess how long this is going to, what the implications are going to be on this one, but it could be a very long time. So anyways, thank you.
I would query Commissioner Ignacio to give us a brief overview of the City of Point Arena's condition for water.
As far as water goes, being right on the ocean, plenty of water, none to drink. The City of Point Arena doesn't have a municipal water system. It actually has a family-owned contracted private system. It's situated on the Garcia River out here. We're monitoring levels right now. We seem to be able to hold our own being this close. We get a lot of marine weather that provides moisture and some light rainfall through the season, but we're settling in. It looks like citizens that are still on well systems, I'm being told, are rapidly purchasing storage tank systems and auxiliary pumps to try and get what they can and make it last. Other than that, we do rely on that family-owned business, which is the Point Arena Waterworks, owned by the Hay family out here. They do truck water to us, but we're just now beginning our conservation efforts and discussions as well. Thank you, Chair.
Is there any further discussion on our water situation? I know the City of Willits is similar to the City of Ukiah. Commissioner Gonzalez, would you like to speak to that briefly?
Well, I think I think kind of like you up in Brook Trails, put up our splash boards and we're full as far as I know. Obviously, if the drought continues, that'll tax the system. And we have an alternate source with well water. So we're not hurting, but I think that everybody's going to start to be mindful of conservation. Those discussions, I'm sure, will continue as this proceeds. So.
Thank you. And I'll report for Brook Trails because unlike Willits, we no longer have flashboards. We did modernize to a rubber airbag actuated steel dam, and it has allowed us to capture water throughout the rainy season as we can mimic nature and the flows. We have a pretty extensive flow regime out of our reservoir that continues to feed the Willits Valley because of this technology. And currently we're not even looking at restricting. We do have a cap on our water meters at 9,000 gallons a month. And we have the ability to rapidly decline that available water if necessary. My personal concern is whether we need to begin to make domestic water available to areas outside our district, possibly through trucking because of the degree of the emergency need. That has not been discussed at this time. But I wouldn't be surprised if it's not a future discussion, given the circumstances. And that's my commissioner report. Do we have any further reports? Yes, Glenn, Commissioner McGortney.
So the county is, of course, very concerned about this. We declared a drought emergency the day before the governor was here. So we recognize that countywide it's a big issue. We have about 42 different entities that deliver water. So we're going to start trying to find out the status of each one individually. And yes, we're very concerned about wells running dry because we have lots of real marginal aquifers. Very concerned about the demand for water from illegal cannabis operations and people who are dependent on trucking water. So There's a lot of public angst about that. And so the county also is going to have its own drought task force that is sort of oriented on the county. There exists also one on the Russian River, who Beth would have talked about had she stayed on the conversation. So we're already kind of encouraging that people implement kind of water conservation techniques. You know, one of the things I will say that I expect to see us face sometime in the near future is the whole idea about the city of Ukiah supplying water to the water districts to the north of us and to Redwood Valley to create water security, because I'm also on the Ukiah, I can never say this straight, Ukiah Valley Basin Groundwater Sustainability Agency. I said it. And you know, we actually sit on 2 Lake Mendocinos in Ukiah Valley, which is really great for years like this. And it would be very prudent for us to have the city of Ukiah be able to wholesale water to the outlying districts. And that's something that would require, of course, work with LAFCO on. And I really fear this summer for Redwood Valley because they're in very, very bad condition. We're concerned also for the diversions that Millview uses, and any surface water diversions are going to be problematic here this year because there just isn't going to be a lot of surface water. And I suspect sooner or later, we're going to play a part in trying to decide what the future is going to be for water sustainability here in the Ukiah Valley region, not just the city of Ukiah. John White's done a great job of upgrading their system. They have a really well-functioning recycled water project, and city of Ukiah is the one bright spot as you look around water situation in Mendocino County.
Thank you for those reports. Does Council Brown have any comment?
No,
Okay.
I think I've said plenty.
And with that, we move to our last item, which is a report on Cal LAFCO business and the legislative report before we adjourn. Uma?
Don't have anything to share from Cal LAFCO this month.
And with that, we can announce our next commission meeting will be on June 7th of 2021. And I'm looking for a motion to adjourn. Doesn't require a second, it doesn't require a vote. So thank you all. Thank you, staff, especially for providing me with something to read while my computer was not providing me documents. Brand new computer, 1 year old, and battery is on the main board, and the battery absolutely died on me.
Wow. Last
night. I did fortunately get to review everything for my secondary computer. So I'm glad to, it's a little choppy. I'm sorry about the meeting choppiness sometimes, but thank you all for putting up with it. And yes, Commissioner Ignacio, before we adjourn.
Yes, Chair Orth, you did a great job managing this group of people. Clearly, we're all interested in our public. We're interested in our future. And so I appreciate the way you were able to manage and keep this meeting moving forward. And I look forward to working with my fellow commissioners going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Concurrently, I'm also working with the Association of Fire Districts for an agenda item tomorrow. So it's been a very hectic weekend. Thank you very much. And we are adjourned.
Bye, everyone.